You're listening to Real Estate for Real People, hosted by the Stone Sisters. The Stone Sisters have built an award-winning realty business, and they're here to share some of their knowledge with you. A new episode drops every Thursday. If you enjoy the show, please share it with a friend and leave a review wherever you listen to your podcasts. And visit www.stonesisters.com for more information just like this.
Hey everybody, thank you so much for joining us again for another episode of Real Estate for Real People. Today we are really proud and really excited to present to you one of our phenomenal partners, Kelsey Francisco.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, it's great. So tell us a little bit, Kelsey, if you can, sort of your background, how long you've been with us. You grew up in a real estate family, so love to hear some of that.
Grew up in a real estate family. My mom's been a realtor for as long as I can remember. Only regret I have is not paying attention when I was younger, because I never really thought that this was the course for me. But yeah, it definitely helped me shape, what to expect, the overall lifestyle, and what, hard work actually has to go into being a realtor.
Right.
But I'm going on year 4 now of being a realtor, 3 years with you guys. So it's been really great. It's been fantastic.
Awesome.
I'm happy I went this route.
Good. So tell us about your background, because you, as you said, you didn't think this was something you're going to do. So
And you went and got a degree, I believe, but totally different field, right?
Yeah, I have a degree in psychology. So for a couple of years, I worked as a behavior interventionist, which was great. And even the training that you do, when you work for hotlines and volunteering for that kind of stuff, the training I honestly find has really helped actually in this career field, just knowing how to talk to people who are stressed.
Yeah. Well, and they say, buying a house or selling a house, moving is one of the most stressful things that you're going to ever encounter in your life.
Yeah.
So to have that skill set, I think, is phenomenal.
Yeah, the ability to stay calm in, they're exciting times, they can be sad, and it is always, always stressful.
Yeah, exactly. No, so it's actually helped me quite a bit. So I definitely don't regret going to university before coming into this.
And what made you decide, what was the catalyst that led you to become a realtor?
As much as I loved the families that I was working with as a behavior interventionist, I just wasn't happy. I knew the day-to-day of what that kind of work entailed, or even to move up in that industry, having to go back to school to get my master's. I just didn't want to do that. I wanted more flexibility, and I'm very motivated by, I guess, hard work and the payout from hard work. So for me, you can work as hard as you can and pick up more shifts, but it's not really going to pay off for you in other fields.
Directly,
so so for me, that was a big reason why I got into real estate. But also, it just meeting people and the type of work it is, regardless of a monetary value, it's just it's fun. I love interior design. So it fit really well with me.
Well, it's exciting. You're talking to us two that absolutely love what we do. And it's, it's just such an exciting industry, and every day is different.
Yes, exactly.
You can't plan on what every day is going to be, because it changes, and you get to meet such amazing people. So,
yes, yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about sort of your experience. You work with a large, different sort of clientele group, but you have worked with quite a few first-time home buyers. So maybe at first we can sort of just talk about that and your experience, and sort of any tips you have for that type of consumer or buyer.
Yeah. So usually I love to first meet people in a home. I know some people love to go grab a coffee or, go meet up for lunch. And that's totally fine. But I think it's actually really important to meet in a home for the first time, because, that's what we're there for. And first time going through a home with someone, especially first time home buyers, maybe a bit younger, I say, as long as there's no cameras or audio recording us in the home, I say, tell me all your thoughts that are going through your head as we walk through the home. I want to know more about what's important to you. So just let it all out. Tell me what you think of that and this and the way the light's coming in and whatnot. And I'll ask a lot of questions to them as well. Oh, do you like natural light, for example? A lot of people don't realize how important it really is to them.
Yes.
So maybe the way the house is facing, or you have a cliff behind you and it's going to really impede on the light coming into your kitchen. Does that something that affects you? So I tell them to, talk freely when they're in the home, so I can have a better understanding of what they're looking for, as well as I'm going to ask you a million questions, because it's going to help me as well.
So smart, actually.
Yeah.
That's a great idea. Because a lot of times you do say, oh, well, let's just meet for coffee and we can get an idea. But you're right. We're there looking at houses. And what a great way to get the insight is to sort of things that pique their interest or things they absolutely don't like. You're going to see it firsthand right from the beginning.
Yeah. I mean, and even just getting in homes too, right? You know, sometimes I hear, well, I don't want to waste your time. I don't want to look at houses that aren't meant for us. But I'm like, but to me, it's not a waste of time because it's helping my knowledge as a realtor, because maybe that house is not perfect for you, but I have another client that goes, hey, Kelsey, did you see that house on, you know, Smith Street? What do you think of it? I'm like, yeah, actually, I was in it the other day. And it makes me sound more knowledgeable and actually know what I'm talking about to potentially help someone else.
I like that. I think that's a great point.
And I guess as first-time home buyers, maybe they don't really necessarily know what their needs and wants are. So just by getting in the house, it helps narrow down, which in turns helps everyone. So
and they don't know what they don't know. They don't even know what to ask.
Yeah.
I mean, it can be so daunting, this, you know, American/Canadian dream to own a home. And, you know, it's nice to know somebody's going to be patient and really show them a lot of properties and ask a lot of questions and really find out who they are.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's huge. Asking a lot of questions is big. For first-time home buyers that haven't done this before, they, as you said, they don't know what they don't know. So what are some of the things that, you know, you think is important for a first-time home buyer? Like, is there certain questions that you ask kind of every first-time home buyer, or?
Yeah, I think some of it, I guess, kind of revolves around indoor-outdoor space. You know, do you want something? Do you have the time for something that requires yard maintenance? You know, some people think, oh, I can't wait to have this beautiful big house with this yard. But do you actually have either the means to get someone to help you do it, or do you have the time yourself to maintain it? Because I think, I mean, especially from what I've seen recently, you know, people bought a home 2 years ago and they're calling us back saying, hey, you know, it's a bit too much for, you know, what we thought it was going to be.
Yes.
So, you know, what does that look like for you in your everyday lifestyle? Area is a big one. You know, I like to, especially if they're open to it, or if they're from Alberta or somewhere else that's not Kelowna and they're not familiar with the area, just getting to see different houses in different areas, going for a walk, like parking your car and actually going to the coffee shop, going to the grocery store.
Love
yes,
that.
you live in a beautiful area, but what grocery store are you going to go to? Do you like, you know, do you enjoy going there? So area is a big one too. Yeah. Other than that, it's just, you know, if it's a fixer-upper, what extent are you willing to put in?
Yes.
What kind of work are you willing to put in to make it what you want? There's a million different questions.
Yeah.
And what do you find? Do you find that first-time buyers, for the most part, sort of gravitate to certain areas? Is there a general rule of thumb, or is it all over?
I don't necessarily think so. I mean, especially now with how things have changed with working from home, I don't think area is as big of a factor as it maybe used to be, because, you know, they're going to be at their home office. So if they need to go drive, you know, wherever, maybe they don't mind it because it gets them out of the house, right? So maybe adding an extra 5 minutes to be farther away is not a big deal.
Yeah.
But if, you know, you're commuting to an office every day, then I'm sure area does play a bigger factor.
Well, and I think price is probably the number one factor. That in itself is going to dictate a lot of, you know, whatever your budget is, that straight away is going to.
Yeah. And I mean, too, if they're looking for something that has a mortgage helper, right? You know, if that's how they're getting their financing because they're going to have a suite, then obviously, you know, Rutland, for example, has the split level home. So you're more likely to be able to find something there that can accommodate the suite.
And I guess that sort of leads me to my next question. What would you say a typical buyer, first-time buyer or buyer of yours is? Is it somebody that's typically, are they looking for a mortgage helper? Are you seeing more people wanting something that has the suite potential in there?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it's kind of 50-50 from a first-time home buyer standpoint. I think a lot of them like the idea of not needing that, but as long as the space itself works for what they need in their lifestyle, I think they're okay with it, because you see some homes where, you know, the entire bottom level of the home is a suite. So they are only really able to use one level of the house, whereas some homes have an extra rec room that they still have access to downstairs, and then there's still a suite. So I think the layout of the house makes a big difference on whether it's something that they're willing to take on.
And do you have many first-time buyers who buy houses, single-family homes, or do they gravitate to condos or townhomes? Is that sort of a first step, a typical first step?
Yeah,
Great question.
I think that one comes down to price again too, because, well, especially with how things changed over the last year, you know, a lot of first-time home buyers that I was working with we were looking at homes, but prices went up so quickly last year, we quickly had to shift to townhomes,
Right.
because that was what was in their price range, or they just didn't buy, and now they came back to me a year later and they, okay, we're ready. Let's start looking at houses again,
so
right?
Are you finding that lots of first-time buyers are now coming back to the marketplace?
Yes, because, when you set someone up on a search, for example, so they can start at least looking at homes online. Last year, if they said that my max budget was $700, you were setting them up on a search for $650, because you need them to have that power to go over asking. We're not seeing that anymore. So now we can be like, okay, if your budget's $700, I'm going to sell you for $720, because maybe we have some negotiating room to go down. But of course, keep in mind that that's not a guarantee. It's just, it could happen.
Right.
So
Interesting.
yeah, a lot of people are definitely coming back now. Hey, we tried to look last year. Maybe we were looking at a different area last year. And now that things have calmed down, like, we're ready to start looking again.
Yeah.
And I have another question, sort of jumping gears a little bit. You've helped a lot of clients that are looking at condos, but more specifically sort of investment condos, Airbnb. And I know you've worked with a few clients as well that even look at single family homes for running an Airbnb.
Yeah.
What can you tell us about that buyer as well? Is there any sort of guidance you would give them?
For them, it really comes down to what the return's going to be. Area is going to be a big factor. So of course, the downtown Kelowna area, the Kelowna South Pandosy area, Lower Mission, you're probably going to get better rental rates nightly if you're doing Airbnb. A lot of first-time home buyers actually kind of combining the two end up wanting to buy maybe a condo or a townhome first, or a smaller single family home, because their plan is live it, in that themselves, and then keep it for an investment to do that in the future.
Right.
Yeah.
Interesting. So you're looking sort of to please them now to live in it, and also the future of investment down the road.
Yeah, there's a couple
like
people
that.
who have definitely brought that up. Like, oh, maybe we'll just hold on to it and rent it out, and, down the line, and keep this as our investment property. So maybe that's why they're more okay with starting on a smaller scale rather than going straight to the big single family home for their first house.
Well, and I think that's something too that we see a lot. People come to us sometimes, and you probably experience this too, and they say, okay, my house that I want, it's going to have a white picket fence. It's going to have a big yard. I want a view, maybe a pool, 3 bedrooms up. I want a,
Triple
perfect
garage.
Yeah.
perfect kitchen. I want all of this stuff, and I would like that now. And it's going to be my forever home. So my kids are going to be raised there. Like, their kids are going to be raised there. It's just going to be this family home forever.
Yeah.
And it's, letting people know that, hey, you know what? That's great. And I would, I love that idea, but we have to take steps. On average, people move every, John had said it earlier, 3.8 years. I think it's more closer to about 5 years.
That's what I would find.
Yeah.
So it's letting people know that you don't have to find your forever home right now. And I think that's a big guidance for people to learn that.
Yeah. And I've mentioned that to first-time home buyers before too. Their budget's $900, let's say, and we're looking at these houses, but they're like, oh, but the kitchen needs to be redone, or they'll bring up things that cost money, and I'm like, well, if you want a house with everything that you're saying, this is what you're spending. You're spending 1.1 at least, right? To get what you really want. So maybe you change your plans. Maybe this is not your forever home where you're going to raise 3 kids. This is the house where you maybe have your first kid, and then you graduate onto a home after that. Or
We've talked about getting on the property ladder, like just, hanging on. And then once you're on, it's easier to sort of pull yourself up that ladder.
Yeah, just get in. That's what it comes down to, is just get into the market.
It's so shocking, to think that a first-time buyer would spend $900,000.
I know.
And I
You
think
said that,
about
I'm thinking, really?
the first house I bought before I was married was $95,000.
Wow.
And it was nothing fancy, but
it was a house.
it was a
Mine was a
freestanding
condo.
detached house for $95,000.
Wow.
So that was 2,000 years ago, but still.
Yeah. No, a lot of people are getting help from their parents too, because when we're writing up
Yes.
contracts, their parents are usually on title to those contracts as
Right.
well. So, or you look at a $900,000 home, but you have the mortgage helper, right? Especially
Yes.
with vacancy
Yes.
rates right now in Kelowna, like, you can make some really good money just off even a long-term tenant.
Yeah.
Makes a big difference.
Absolutely.
Now, jumping back a little bit, when you're giving people advice as to buying an Airbnb property, something that they could potentially rent, what are the city, do you know what the city sort of guidelines on that are?
Well, it's going to start with zoning. When it comes down to strata, which a lot of people tend to like the strata side of things better because it's less maintenance for them personally. If you're buying a single family home that you Airbnb, now you're adding on, anything that's going on with the house. And then you're adding on landscaping, stuff like that. So strata wise, of course, City of Kelowna is quite strict on what buildings do allow it.
Yes.
So there's only really a handful that you can pick from realistically, and
Yes.
only even a smaller number of that handful that have amenities, which is probably where you're going to be able to charge more nightly because you have a pool, you have a gym, you have all that fun stuff, right? And you're a block away from the beach.
Yes.
So those are really big, important factors, I think, when people look is what their nightly rate could be. And you tend to get a higher nightly rate when you're looking at those strata properties just because they offer so much more.
Yes, makes sense.
Unless it's like, a big 4,000 square foot home, maybe that Airbnb is the whole entire thing, but zoning is going to be the number one thing.
Yeah.
City of Kelowna has a great website where it's pretty much a checklist of everything you need in order to be classified as Airbnb property. But
Well, and you have to live there. I think that's a big key is it needs to be your prime residence that you spend time in.
That's right.
And then rent out all or a portion of the house out for Airbnb. And you have to get a license as well. That's $750, I think.
around there. Yeah. You have to go through all the hoops to get it. But I mean, it's worth it though.
It is worth it.
Yeah.
When you look at
absolutely.
some of the rents that people are getting, it's, it's crazy.
Well, we heard of a stunning home. I think it's sort of a one-of-a-kind home. It came with a boat and a cook that was rented for $100,000 a week this summer
Wow, in Kelowna.
in Kelowna.
Yeah, we've certainly come there. We've gotten to a point where we're, deemed as very desirable. I mean, even just look at some of the people that are around in Kelowna. When you see, if you follow some of the social media, there's quite a few, famous people that come to Kelowna that have discovered it. And, so it's interesting to see that it's
growing.
changed. It's growing.
Yeah.
is
And
growing.
it's changed. So
So that's helpful with the first-time buyers and just sort of understanding the mentality. Another segment that you work really well with as well. I mean, you're not limited because you've helped lots of sellers and you help buyers and everything, but you've also kind of created a niche for yourself with helping people move here from outside the area.
Yeah. Biggest thing, people moving from outside the area is just get to know the area. And of course it's hard, if we're doing the FaceTime phone calls, sometimes I'll have the phone I have, one of those things that you hook up to your car and I'll turn it around and I'll drive so they can see,
I like
Google
that.
Maps is great for that too. But of course it's not always up to date with what's actually going on in the area. Just going for a walk, putting on your runners and actually taking a video of the street, what the curb appeal looks like, what the area looks like. But Google Maps is very helpful for people out of town.
I love that.
But if they're in town, just get out there and look, if you want to see 20 homes, maybe we see 10 today and you spend the rest of your day actually, just driving around and looking
And visiting
for yourself.
the coffee shops.
Yeah.
And
even popping and seeing the neighbor next door. Like if you narrow it down to one house that you like, get to know what the people like are on the
Yes.
street. It's not a bad idea to just sort of walk by until somebody's outside and introduce yourself.
Yeah,
and
exactly. How's the neighborhood?
Question. So how many people over the course, when we had COVID and we couldn't travel as much, I know we'd always be talking and you'd be doing, I'm going to be doing a FaceTime showing on that property and I'm doing a FaceTime showing on this one. And, you'd be pulling over to the side of the car, writing up an offer. How many properties did you sell without people coming through?
I would say last year it was the majority of my sales. Actually, I did one this morning. Like it's still happening.
Wow.
I have a buyer from Montreal who's looking for investment properties here. So we were in West Kelowna this morning, FaceTime showing, and at least there's no rush now where there was last year. So for them, it makes so much more sense. I mean, whether you're from Alberta, even Vancouver, or Montreal, like my buyers right now, doing a FaceTime showing, because why would you bother coming here if it's not going to work out, right? Let's do the FaceTime showing first. Then, we'll do all our research, decide if it's a good property, maybe potentially try to write an offer. If it comes together, then you can come view it.
I like that before you remove conditions.
Yeah.
And it's nice that you can, we're back to a market where you can put conditions on.
Yes.
And, I don't think anybody's doing subject-free offers or certainly not with any.
Not many, unless they're coming in really low. I've seen a few where they're coming in extremely low and offering that as an incentive. But
Well, there's still been multiple offers happening. They don't happen on every property like they did last year, but when they do happen now, you still get the notification. We received 7 offers. Subject removal date is September 28th. So obviously that winning offer still has subjects to some degree.
Yes, even though there's multiple offers, they are still accepting those with, so don't shy, I guess, away from a multiple offer situation.
No, and I mean, from what I've heard from other agents too, sometimes all the prices coming in on multiple offers are still under asking.
Yes.
Yes, and I think that's something that's really interesting because that's been the historical norm for Kelowna, that you'd get 2 to 5% off of asking price. And then COVID hit and we were selling at 101% or, at or over list price.
Yeah.
And now it's back down where you've got, I think it's averaging right now about 3%.
Like 97% of list price around there. Yeah. And so, going in, I always say, obviously start lower because that's just part of the market now. You go back and forth.
Yeah.
Unless you're like, I can't lose this house, then that's a bit different. But if you're patient on the other end too, then like, why not try? Kind of see where the seller's sitting.
How many times would you say offers are going back and forth in your experience?
It's a mix. I have some buyers that are like, what, I don't care to do this back and forth. I like this home. I want to live here. I'm going to give my best offer or, maybe just below my best offer and see what happens, maybe 1 or 2 times in that situation. Or you have the investor clients that are like, let's try 100 under. Let's try 150 under. And then sometimes you go back and forth and it's 3 days go by before you get an accepted offer. And the contract just looks like a mess.
Yes,
it's true.
We had one this weekend.
Just rewrite it. Exactly. But it just really depends on the kind of buyer. I think if it's for themselves, it's maybe not as much, but if it's more of an investor type, who wants to maybe paint it.
And they're not emotional. It's all about the dollars at that point. Yeah. So they haven't envisioned themselves moving in there because they're never going to. So for them, it's really strictly the numbers.
Exactly.
So, it makes sense that they would try really low
to get the best deal.
To get the best deal.
Exactly.
So what do you say, or what do you sort of predict with the marketplace? Like you're saying right now, you're still seeing multiple offers on some properties. There's been so much in the media saying that the market is so quiet. It's completely changed. And, we're seeing that, and you're kind of saying the same thing. It's not, it's not dead. No, we're not seeing offers maybe flying over asking price and
But there's still sales happening. There's good volume of business.
I think I'm still showing every single day to a handful of people, buyers, whoever it is. It's busy. We're still busy. I think a lot of it comes down to, too, from a buyer's point of view. Maybe they're not buying in the first week and we're spending a couple months now looking at homes. So that's why it seems busy, just because we're spending time to actually go and look. But no, they're still writing, they're still listing. So it's busy. I'm sure it's going to slow down as we go into winter, but September so far has been actually quite good. Yeah.
And what do you sort of foresee as far as like next year?
I think spring's going to pick up. Yeah. I think from, everyone that I've talked to, especially I work with a lot of buyers. So a lot of people who are buying now think that the reason that they're buying is because this is the lowest the prices are going to get. Yes. Yes, they probably might go down a little bit more, but they're like, they're going to go up again. It's just a matter of time. So why would I wait? Like I'm going to buy now while prices are low.
Yes.
Well,
so
especially if they find the home they want.
Yeah.
If you can find the house you want and the price is agreeable, could it, if it was still there, could it be a bit lower in November, December? Maybe, but could it be higher in February? Probably.
Exactly. Yeah. It depends on exactly what their goal is. If they're going to plan on holding on to it for a while, maybe it's an investment property and they're like, I don't care. It's good. By the time I get rid of it, it's going to be up anyway. So I might as well buy when I think it's low.
For sure. Yeah. No, that's so true. Well, Kelsey, this has been amazing. So how do people find you? What's the best way for them to contact you?
Anyway, honestly.
You're on stonesisters.com and they can find you on there.
Yeah, my contact info is on there. Otherwise, Instagram, people reach out to me on Instagram, just straight through my cell phone, email. Honestly, I'm
And
everywhere.
What's your cell phone number?
250-488-3146.
Beautiful. And we'll link all of that in the comments below.
Yeah.
So that you can find Kelsey or reach out to Shannon and I and say you want to work with Kelsey because she's high energy and super knowledgeable and lots of fun.
Thank you.
So thank you again.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Real Estate for Real People. If you want to reach out to the Stone Sisters, visit www.stonesisters.com. This podcast was produced by Podigy Podcasts. See you next time.